Welcome, YouTube family, and welcome to another video of The Kevin Strong Show. And in this video, we're going to talk about it takes a six-figure household income to afford a house nowadays. So a lot of Americans are getting priced out of the possibility of experiencing the American dream of home ownership. We're going to talk about that by way of an article. And the article is going to talk about some tips you can do to put yourself in a better position to be able to afford a home. But I'm going to disagree with some parts of the article that talks about an adjustable rate mortgage. I'm not an advocate of that. And obviously, it's very difficult to basically get a higher down payment, which is the second recommendation that the article talks about. So once again, if you're enjoying this type of content, please do me the honor, smash that like button. Just takes a moment, smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I humbly ask for your hand to smash that subscribe button so you can get local information from me as it appears. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this article. And I'm going to give you some tips that I have come across during my experience as a licensed real estate agent and as a mortgage broker back in 2005 and currently a mortgage broker today. So let's go ahead and jump into this article. The title of this article, as you can see here, is called Buyers Need a Six-Figure Income to Afford a Typical Home, Report Finds. Here's how to reduce the cost. So let's go ahead and jump into this. We know that home prices have just skyrocketed within the last 2 years. Personal savings rates are at an all-time low. The consumer sentiment, basically, that's an index that tracks how confident we are as U.S. consumers. That's almost at an all-time low, and inflation is at a 40-plus year high. So all of the aforementioned are a recipe for disaster. Some of the key points that this article is briefly going to talk about is that it says in October, U.S. home buyers needed to earn over $107,000 to afford the medium monthly mortgage payment of $2,600. So that's for a typical home in aggregate. So you may be in a market where you can get a home for significantly less, or you may be in a market that it costs a lot more. But once again, these are basically aggregate numbers overall. The second bullet point of this article talks about that 45.6% higher than the $73,000 yearly income needed to convert the medium mortgage payment just 12 months ago. So just a year ago, $73,000 could do it, could possibly get you into the medium home and the medium mortgage payment. That's gone up 45%. No one probably, I shouldn't say no one, but it's highly unlikely that anyone has gotten a 45% pay raise from 2021 to 2022 unless they're in a commission or sales-based environment or have some type of aggressive bonus compensation plan attached to their wages. Finally, it says, however, experts say there are a few ways to reduce your monthly mortgage payment. We're going to talk about that briefly. The article talks about coming up with a higher down payment and an adjustable rate mortgage. So let's go ahead and jump into this. As I said earlier, there's no secret. It takes $107,000 of household income, and that's what's needed to afford the average monthly mortgage payment of $2,600. We just talked about how this has gone up year over year, 45%. They say due in large because of interest rates being the primary reason. I say in concert with interest rates, we have an exorbitant amount of inflationary factors such as gas, utilities, things of that nature. Property taxes are now starting to come into play. That's starting to affect people's affordability, not so much in putting them in position to buy a home, but it's just another cost. So what's happening on that front is that you have people who want to sell their homes that maybe have locked in at, let's say, a 3% or 3.5% 30-year fixed rates a couple years ago. And if they sell their house now, they're going into a mortgage environment where they may be looking at 7 or 7.5% interest rates, a much higher inflationary environment in 2022 and beyond than what they experienced maybe 2 or 3 years ago when they locked in on that low rate. So what you have is that you have a lot of homeowners who are somewhat apprehensive about selling their house because they don't want to get the payment shock. So once again, there's going to be a lot of things moving along exterior wise in terms of things like that, inflation, energy prices that basically are going to keep people on the sidelines from purchasing a home. So this is why I've been on record for saying for well over a year, it's not going to be the necessary normal matrix that you look at to determine whether or not the housing is turning, like 6 months of inventory. You know, we've got inflation and all these other things, all of these other things that I've mentioned are really going to have an impact on the housing market, in my humble opinion. You're not going to just be able to say, okay, everything's going to be fine until we get 6 months of inventory, because most of us have noticed that the housing market in aggregate has started to come down despite most markets not having the traditional 6 months of inventory for that to happen. And it says, despite the sharp drop reported this week, the average interest rate for a 30-year fixed mortgage for $647,000 or less was hovering below 7% compared to under 3.5% at the beginning of January. So we all seen the mortgage rates just double this year. And obviously that is a primary factor. But as I indicated before, it is not the only factor. So what can you do, according to this article, how to make your mortgage more affordable? They say come up with a higher down payment, means a smaller mortgage and a lower monthly payment. Okay, more down in this sort of environment can definitely play a role in getting your mortgage cost under control. This, in my opinion, guys, is just an exercise in theory. Most people do not have a significant amount of money set aside for a higher down payment. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but quite a few people use FHA and VA as a conduit to acquire real estate. Those programs, respectively, FHA is 3.5% down, and for you veterans out there, such as myself, ironically, I've never even used my VA loan, but VA loans, you can get those for no money down, and you do not have private mortgage insurance. But like I said, you're dealing with inflation, you've got potential layoffs. And I think home prices are still relatively overpriced. So if you are in a position where you can put a substantial down payment down, I would probably wait on the sidelines. I wouldn't jump in quite yet. I think you're going to get more bang for your buck if you wait until 2023 or possibly beyond. The second recommendation that they have is this thing called adjustable rate mortgages, which offers a lower initial interest rate compared to a fixed rate. And then the rate adjusts at a predetermined intervals to the market rate at that time. So let's just say you might have something called a 3-in-1 ARM. For those of you who are not familiar with it, it is fixed for the first 3 years and it starts to adjust every year thereafter. There's typically a cap without getting too technical. So your rate is fixed for the first 3 years. Then it starts to adjust every year. And normally it can adjust no more than 2 percentage points each year. And then your paperwork will also indicate the maximum interest rate that rate can go to over the life of the loan. So you might have a 3-in-1 ARM in this example that starts out at, let's say, 5.75%. So in 2025, it starts to adjust because that fixed rate period has expired over 3 years. So in 2025, the 5.75 is subject to adjusting. It can go up or down. If it goes up, your paperwork might say it can go up no more than 2 full percentage points per adjustment period, which typically is 12 months. And then over the life of the loan, they may say your rate can never be higher than 9.5%. That would be the max cap rate. So that's just a short crash course on how an adjustable rate mortgage kind of works. I strongly recommend against doing that. That's probably an indication that you're rushing into something and you probably can't afford it. Once again, it's always the maintenance and other things that get you. It's not so much the payment. So what I wanted to also talk about is purchasing power here. I'm going to switch back here to my main screen and talk about, how important keeping your debt down and your credit score up. Not so much just based on from a mortgage standpoint, but just having options. You can get cheaper insurance with good credit. But here's the thing about debt. And this was a general rule that was taught to me back in 1995, 94. I think 94 is when I got my real estate license when I was in Ohio. For every $10 worth of debt, you lose $100 worth of purchasing power. So if you go out in today's dollars and get a new car loan. I think the average car loan, the new car loan, is like almost $750. Okay. That means that if you can afford a $400,000 house, but you go out and purchased a new vehicle and your payment $750 a month, you've lost $75,000 worth of purchasing power. So that $400,000 mortgage knocks you down to a $325,000 house. Huge. So once again, for every dollar that you have in debt, you lose about $100 or so in purchasing power. So once again, if you've got a $300 car note, you're losing $30,000. If you got a $400 car note, you're losing $40,000. So it's imperative to keep your debt down. There's some creative things you can do when you're getting ready to get yourself set up to get pre-approved for a mortgage, but you have to be careful with that. A lot of times when you guys do these balance transfers that dumps all of this credit card debt into a lower payment, sometimes that'll offset your credit card utilization rate. Let's say you get this new balance transfer and the maximum limit on a card, let's say, is $30,000, and you put, $25,000 worth of new credit card debt on this one card because it's going to give you 18 months at 0%. The negative aspect for that is that you've got a $30,000 card that you just opened up, but you've already put $25,000 on it. So it's almost maxed out. So your credit card utilization rate, the percentage of balance in relationship to what the credit line is over 30%. So that's going to really bring down your FICO score quite a bit. However, if you have a pretty good idea on how much that's going to bring your FICO score down, the payment that you're making on that new $25,000 debt at 0% for 18 months can collectively be much lower than, let's say, the other 3 or 4 cards combined that added up to that $25,000. So let's say you had 5 cards, each card had $5,000 of debt in it. Okay, and you're paying 30% on that. So you got $25,000 spread out over 5 cards, and you put all those cards together and you dump it on a new card. And let's say this new card, the payment is $400. But previously, before you did that consolidation and balance transfer, those payments were, let's say, $650 or $700. Say $600. So you've just reduced your debt, your monthly debt obligation, by $200 from $400 to $600. I hope I said that right. So from qualifying from a mortgage standpoint, you've just increased your purchasing power by what? $20,000, because it used to be $600 a month. Now it's $400 a month. And remember, for that ratio, so now that you're saving $200 a month, that's an extra $200,000 worth of purchasing power that you can go out and apply towards a home. However, when you do that balance transfer and almost max out that new card, that's going to pull your credit score down quite a bit. And you have to make sure before you do that, you talk to a professional to get some kind of idea of what kind of impact that's going to have on your FICO score. He or she are not going to be able to tell you definitively what that number is. And legally, they can't, because they don't know. But someone who's been in the business for a while could probably tell you that, but I don't do that anymore, but I could help you out. I'll put it to you that way. A soft estimate, in my humble opinion. So once again, that's another creative way to get a little bit more purchasing power. And be careful. I'm thinking about also doing a video just talking about people's mindset, because you have to be very careful with credit. It's usually the person who really wants the credit, who probably is first thing they're going to do is turn around and use it to charge up something. And then you got people who've got a ton of credit that get the pre-approved offers all the time in the mail, and you just look at them, excuse me, and you just throw them away, and there's something about the mindset, right? Why do people in the middle class get excited about purchasing liabilities? Do you see my new car? I just lost $20,000 in depreciation when I drove it off the lot. Every mile that I drive is worth less than the previous mile driven. It is a maintenance problem waiting to happen. So do you need a new car? I don't think so, but everybody's in a different situation. Make sure, if you are purchasing liabilities and not assets, that you have all your proverbial boxes checked. Do you have an emergency fund? Have you reduced all your debt, right? Do you have some cash reserves? in the bank. The greatest gift you can give your wife or your significant other this Christmas is saying, hey, honey, you know what's nice? We're going to scale back this Christmas, but you know what? If I lost my job or if you lost your job, we can go 4, 6, 9, 12 months and not change anything. We wouldn't have to sell our home. We wouldn't have to uproot our children out of their school system and move them into a less desirable school system because we weren't able to have any adequate reserves set aside for an emergency. So it's okay to have nice things and to purchase nice things, but make sure you have your priorities in order and don't get so fixated on buying things that are liabilities that are not assets. Assets feed you, liabilities eat you. So once again, if you enjoyed this content, please do me the honor of smashing that like button, leaving a comment. I will reply. Please share this video. Once again, this was the Kevin Strong Show, and I'll see you guys in the next video.